Welcome to Movie Mini Recaps. Today we explain and drama thriller movie Rules of Engagement from 2000. So let's go sit back, relax, and enjoy the movie. In 1968, a disastrous American advance in the Vietnam War has Lieutenant Terry Childers executing an unarmed prisoner in order to intimidate a captive North Vietnamese Army officer into calling off an ambush of U.S. Marines. His act thereby saves the life of the wounded Lieutenant Hayes Hodges, though many of Hodges' men die in the battle. In 1996, now a colonel, Hodges is about to retire from the Marine Corps and is reminiscing about his years in uniform. As a result of wounds he sustained during Operation Kingfisher, he was no longer able to continue as an infantry officer, so the Marine Corps sent him to law school, and he continued his career as a JAG officer. He subsequently enters the Camp Lejeune Officers Club, where numerous Marine officers wait to honor his service at a pre-retirement party. Hosting the event is his old friend, Colonel Terry Childers, who is now the commanding officer of a Marine Expeditionary Unit, subsequently deployed to Southwest Asia as part of an amphibious readiness group. Childers and his embarked MEU are called to evacuate the U.S. ambassador to Yemen from the embassy grounds as a routine demonstration against American influence on the Arabian Peninsula, and in the Persian Gulf turns into rock throwing and sporadic automatic rifle fire by snipers from nearby rooftops. After escorting the ambassador Moraine and his family to a waiting helicopter, Childers returns to the embassy to retrieve the American flag. Meanwhile, 3 Marines are killed by snipers on nearby rooftops, with more gunfire following. Childers then orders his men to open fire on the crowd and waste the motherfuckers, resulting in the deaths of 83 civilian protesters and injuries to over 100 more. Back in the U.S. National Security Advisor Bill Sokol pressures the military to proceed with a court-martial to try to deflect negative public opinion about the United States, shouldering all the blame for the incident onto Childers and salvage American relations in the Middle East. Childers subsequently approaches Hodges and asks him to be his defense attorney at the upcoming court-martial. Hodges is reluctant to accept, knowing that his record as a JAG officer is less than impressive and Childers needs a better lawyer. But Childers is adamant, because he would rather have an attorney who has served in combat. With little time to prepare a defense, Hodges visits Yemen only to find uncooperative government officials and first-hand account of the serious injuries the crowd members endured after encountering hostile civilians. Most of the evidence is stacked against Childers, particularly the fact that no one else in his team can testify to having seen gunfire coming from the crowd, in particular Captain Lee, who hesitated to follow Childers' order. Sokol is determined for him to be convicted and is met by the overzealous prosecutor, Major Biggs, who believes Childers to be absolutely guilty and wants to make an example out of him. Sokol at one point burns a videotape of security camera footage revealing that most of the protesting crowd were indeed armed and firing at the Marines, evidence that would potentially exonerate Childers. He also blackmails the ambassador Childers rescued into lying on the stand and saying both that the crowd had been peaceful and that Childers had been violent towards him and his family during the evacuation. Colonel Hodges meets with Moraine's wife after the ambassador's testimony to hear her side of the story. Although she admits Childers had been valiant, she refuses to testify and destroy her marriage. Back at the trial, Hodges presents a shipping manifest proving that a tape from an undamaged camera which had been looking directly into the crowd the tape Sokol had burned had been delivered to Sokol's office, but failed to show up at the trial, arguing that this tape would have been damning evidence against Childers if it had, in fact, shown the crowd was unarmed. Captain Lee is grilled on the witness stand by Major Biggs and, despite trying to give favorable testimony, leaves doubt of Childers' innocence. Childers himself eventually takes the stand, with he and Biggs locked into a fierce verbal battle. Biggs produces an audio tape which contains the recording of Childers' poor choice of words when giving his order. While defending his actions, Childers loses his temper while stating that he would not sacrifice the lives of his men to appease the likes of Biggs. Already at an advantage, the prosecution presents the Vietnamese colonel, who witnessed Childers execute a POW in Vietnam, Colonel Cao, as a rebuttal witness, trying to drive home the idea that Childers is malicious. Hodges cross-examines him and gets him to testify that had the circumstances been reversed, Cao would have done the same thing. After the trial, Hodges visits Sokol and asks him what had happened to the tape. Sokol denies its existence, and Hodges replies, "Have you ever had a pissed-off Marine on your tail?" The film ends with Childers being found guilty of the minor charge of breach of the peace, but not guilty of the more serious charges of conduct unbecoming of an officer and murder. A final title card reveals that no further charges were brought against Childers and that he retired honorably from the Marine Corps. The title card also explains that both Sokol and Murrain lost their jobs after being convicted of destruction of evidence and perjury respectively. Please subscribe for more videos like this, it really motivates us to make more content for you. Leave a comment for any specific movie you want us to do.